Good evening. Welcome everyone to the weekly shiur on the book of Zera Shimshon. Thank you, Daniel, for organizing it with the rabbi, with the food. Thank you for everything.
Also.
Leilu Nishmat, this shiur will be Leilu Nishmat for the elevation of the soul of
Eliezer
Cohen ben Angela. Tiye Nishmato Tzarura B'Torah Chaim. So, with your permission, I would like to share with you an idea that we come back home with and apply it. You know, today was Chaf Be'av, the 28th day of Av. This is the day of the passing of Rabbi Levi Yitzchak Shneerson, the father of the Lubavitcher Rebbe, and he passed away in Kazakhstan, in Alma-Ata. He wasn't in Kazakhstan because he was living there. He was in Kazakhstan because he was sent in exile. And he passed away in exile in 1944. And he was known as a big Mekubal, big Kabbalist. And just to show respect to Rabbi Levi Yitzchak, I would like to share with you one of his ideas of Kabbalah that are also practical for everyone. You know, according to Kabbalah, there is kindness and judgment, chesed and gvura. And this can be also seen in our life. Sometimes we achieve, sometimes we are happy, sometimes we succeed. This is kindness. But there are other times that we don't achieve, we fail. And this is coming from judgment. So the question that we might have is, how can we make sweet judgment? In business, it doesn't go, right? And we want to make it going. Is there a segula that we can do in order to make sweet the judgment and to be able to succeed again in the business? So Rabbi Levi says that the way of making sweet judgment is by the letters. What does that mean? The pasuk says, "Ve'ele hamishpatim asher tasim lifnehem." This is Parashat Mishpatim. Hashem says to Moshe, these are the laws that you are going to put in front of them, the Jewish people. But lifnehem in Hebrew, it means in front of them, the Jewish people, or lifnehem, it's before them. Lifnehem, before them. And it says like this, Ele hamishpatim, here are the laws, but mishpat also is a sentence. Mishpat can be also a word, mishpat. So if you want to make sweet something, you need to take the name of it and to put the letter lifnehem, one before. And he gives an example. If you take the name of God, Elohim, Aleph, Lamed, He, Yud, Mem, Sofit, 5 letters. This name Elohim represents judgment. You want to make sweet the name of God, Elohim. You want to take the judgment of Elohim and to calm it down, to cool it down. How do you do it? So Rabbi Levi says, for each letter of Elohim, you replace it by the letter before. So Aleph, before Aleph, what do we have? We don't have anything. So you put a taf, because this is the last letter. Yes. Then before the Lamed, you have the Chaf. Before the He, you have the Dalet. Before the Yud, you have the Tet. And before the Mem, we have Mem Sofit, you have the regular Mem. And he says, Rabbi Levi, this name of Aleph, Chav, Dalet, Tet, Mem Sofit are the letters of Chav, Dalet, Tevet. It's a date. It's Chav, Dalet, Tevet. What is Chav, Dalet special about? The 24th of Tevet. He says, this is the day of passing of the first Chabad Rabbi Admur Zaken, the Baal Tanya, the one that wrote the Tanya, Rabbi Shneur Zalman of Liadi. And he says, he brought down Chassidut in the world. Through learning Chassidut, we are making sweet judgment. Interesting. He comes from a Kabbalistic view and he goes straight to Hasidic view, which is the learning of Chassidut makes the judgment sweet. This is the first message of tonight. Second message, we're continuing in that idea. You know, the Jewish people in general, when they want to make elevation of the soul of somebody, so he goes in the Tehillim, and in the Tehillim 119 you have 8 times the Aleph Bet. It means that you have 8 pasuk starting with the letter Aleph, 8 psukim starting with the letter Bet, etc. until the Taf. Okay, 8 times each letter. So if, let's say, we want to elevate the soul of Elazar HaKohen, so we will read the pasuk, the 8 times the psukim Aleph, which is Elazar, it starts with the Aleph. Then the Lamed, 8 times the Lamed. Then you have Elazar Ain, the 8 times Zain. So you make the name of the person that you want to elevate the soul, and then you, after you finish the name, you say you read the psukim of Neshama. Okay, Neshama. Now, if you want to have Parnasa yourself, so you read the psukim of your name. Let's say your name is David. So you read the psukim Dalet, Vav, and again Dalet. This is David, and then you read the psukim of Parnasa, Peresh, Nun, Samech, Hey. Those psukim in the 119. Okay. But if you want to make sweet even better, you don't take David, Dalet, Vav, Dalet. You do just like we did with Elohim. Before Dalet you put the Gimel, before the Vav you put the Hey, and before the Dalet you put the Gimel. And instead of reading the Dalet, Vav, Dalet in the 119, you read Gimel, Hey, Gimel in the 119. This is making sweet the judgment of a person. Understand?
So now you gotta read it 8 times.
So in the Tehillim,
it's 8 times.
8 times. All the letters that you need. Okay. So first message is that learning Hasidut brings to make sweet the judgment, and number 2 is a practical segula that people are reading their names in the 119. Rabbi Levi comes and explains that if you read the letter before your name, it makes sweet the source of judgment. Because the judgment is your name, let's say, Chazé Shalom, but the source of it is one letter before. So you read the letter before. Okay, so this is in honor of Rabbi Levi. Yeah, of course, you can do it. Yes, of course. Yeah. But the point here is that also the letter before your name is also counting as something. So this was for the honor of Rabbi Levi Yitzhak. Now we are going to share with you, Be'ezrat Hashem, an idea of Zera Shimshon. So in our Parashat Eikev, there is a pasuk speaking about Jewish people eating. It says V'achalta v'savata u'berachta. This is the source from where we know that we need to bless Birkat Hamazon after we finish to eat bread. It says V'achalta v'savata u'berachta. When you eat and you get full, you need to make a blessing, because when you make a blessing when you're happy, so HaKadosh Baruch Hu gets much nachat ruach, much pleasure from that. And from here we understand, if when we are full we need to bless God, so when we are going to eat, of course we need to bless God. And therefore we understand that we need also to bless before eating. You understand? From the bracha after, we understand that we need also to make a bracha before. Now, on that topic of eating, I would like to share with you a story in the Gemara. In Masechet Ta'anit, there is a story. You know, in the time of the Gemara, it was big centers of the Jewish nation, one in Babylon and one in Israel. And therefore we have 2 Shas, 2 Gemara. You have the Gemara of Babylonian Gemara, and then you have the Yerushalayim Gemara. How come we have 2 Gemara? Because it was 2 big centers of Jewish people and rabbis. So the rabbis of Israel made the Gemara of Yerushalayim, and the rabbis of Babylon in Babylon. Now, because the rabbis of Israel was very powerful, much more powerful than the rabbis in Babel, because they were in Israel, so they had much more light of God, if we could say like that, in order to teach Torah. So very often the rabbis of Israel used to go to Babel to share with the rabbis of Babel the new chidushim, novelty of Torah that they learned in Israel, and they want to share with them. Okay. One of the rabbis that once came to Babel was Rabbi Yitzchak. Rabbi Yitzchak was a rabbi in Israel, and he went down to Bavel to meet his friend Rav Nachman. Rav Nachman was very wealthy, well respected because he was one of the best top rabbis at the time. And he went to him, Rav Nachman hosted Rabbi Yitzchak. At one point, Rabbi Yitzchak and Rav Nachman sat down to eat together. And in the middle of eating, Rav Nachman, who is the host, says to Rabbi Yitzchak, you're coming from Israel. Usually the rabbis of Israel are sharing new halachot, new laws, new chidushim. Maybe you can share with me something. So Rabbi Yitzchak very seriously responds to Rav Nachman. He says, Rav Nachman, my teacher in Israel, which is Rabbi Yochanan, taught me that when we are eating, we do not speak because it's dangerous. Now, at the time of the Gemara 2000 years, today is obvious because we can shock. But 2000 years, we didn't know all the mechanisms how it's working. But he has a teaching from Rabbi Yochanan that we do not speak while we're eating. No. Why? Because it's dangerous. And Rav Nachman, who was well respected, it's not respectful to say that to Rav Nachman. He remained quiet. They continued to eat. After they finished the food, the meal, Rabbi Yitzchak is sharing a tremendous chidush that he learned from Rabbi Yochanan about the eternity of the Jewish people, about the eternity of Yaakov Avinu. He says, Yaakov Avinu lo met, Yaakov Avinu didn't die, didn't pass away. And he says, because his descendants are alive, therefore Yaakov Avinu also is alive. And he's telling a big teaching that we are not going to bring now. But he said a big lecture, if you could say, to Rav Nachman after the meal. After he finished to teach Rav Nachman, Rabbi Yitzchak, he says to Rav Nachman, I see that you are respected, you have money, you're rich, you are intelligent. I want to bless you. What do you need in your life? You have everything. And Rav Nachman doesn't answer. Rabbi Yitzchak continues and he says, you know what, Rav Nachman, you're my friend. I will bless you that your children will follow you. I will bless you that your children will be the same as you. Because people are very successful, even today in business, in anything that they do, they are very successful. And where they are the children? Somewhere else. Chas v'shalom, people are, So Rav Yitzchak says to Rav Nachman, I know that issue, and I'm blessing you that your children will be like you. So here, the Zera Shimshon is coming and he says, let's pause for a second on that story. I don't understand, because this teaching that Rav Yitzchak comes from Israel, from Rabbi Yochanan to teach Rav Nachman, that we should not speak in the middle of the meal because it's a danger. This is a teaching that is found in Masechet Brachot, which is the first volume of Gemara, right? And there already we know that teaching. So what Rav Yitzchak comes to teach to Rav Nachman, something obvious that they know already? What's the chidush here? And number two question is, if Rav Nachman knew already, because it says already in the Masechet Brachot, as we just said, he knew already that we are not allowed to speak. So how come that he's asking Rav Yitzchak to speak? It's not allowed. It says clearly we should not speak while we're eating. It's dangerous. Why are you asking Rav Yitzchak to speak? You should fulfill the teaching that it says in Masechet Brachot that you know Rav Nachman, you are well respected. You know that this teaching. And here comes a tremendous answer of the Zera Shimshon, and this answer has also a practical aspect in a daily basis. The halacha says, and this is obvious because everybody is doing it on Shabbat. When the family is sitting around the table on Shabbat, so the father, the one, the older one, is taking the chalot after the kiddush. He's taking the chalot. He's making the blessing hamotzi lechem min haaretz, and everybody says amen. And by saying amen, they don't need to repeat the bracha hamotzi lechem min haaretz when they get their piece of bread, because they said amen, so they were yotzei they fulfill the mitzvah of the bracha by saying amen. Okay? Now the question is, if in the middle of the meal, everybody's eating and all the salads and everything, and suddenly one of the people around the table takes his cup of wine and he says, guys, answer amen, Baruch Atah Hashem, Borei Perei HaGefen, and he wants everybody to say amen. Is he allowed to do that? So the halacha says no, because this is a danger. You cannot speak while you are eating. And if he says the bracha Borei Perei HaGefen and somebody is in the middle of swallowing something and he wants to answer amen, and in the meantime also swallowing, he will get shocked. This is a danger. So you should not do that. So the difference is, why at the beginning of the meal you are allowed and in the middle not? Very simple, because at the beginning everybody didn't start to eat and they are all waiting for the meal to start, so therefore we can have one person saying Hamotzi lechem min haaretz for everybody and everybody says amen. However, in the middle of the meal, everybody is in the middle of eating their food, we cannot make sure that everybody has the empty mouth and everybody is ready to answer amen. So therefore we should not do that. So on that teaching, the Tosfot asks a question, and he says, if let's say the person that wants to make Borei Perei HaGefen in the middle of the meal, he says, hey guys, just put away your knives and your forks. I want now to make a bracha, and he's making sure that everybody stopped to eat. Is he allowed to say Borei Perei HaGefen or not? Because if you say that the whole reason of not saying Borei Perei HaGefen is because of danger, here there is no danger because he made sure that everybody stopped to eat. Is he allowed or not? So Tosfot is answering, in that situation, he is allowed. He is allowed if he's making sure that everybody is not eating. He is allowed in the middle of the meal saying Borei Perei HaGefen for everybody to say amen. But it's not, all opinions are not agree with Tosfot. There is another opinion, Rabbeinu Elchanan. Rabbeinu Elchanan on the Tosfot says that even in that situation that the person made sure that everybody is not eating, in that situation also is not allowed to say the bracha Borei Perei HaGefen. Why not? If nobody is eating. Why not? He says, you know why? Because when somebody is eating, it says, Shat achla, shat krava. When you eat, it's like you are in a war. You are in a war. Did you ever see a soldier in a war putting away his gun or whatever he has to fight? Never. He's just shooting at everybody, the enemies. Just like that, when somebody is eating on his meal, you cannot ask him to put away his knife and his fork, because now he's in a war. He doesn't stop. He cannot stop. He's just inside of it. You understand? So Rabbeinu Hananel explains, because we are comparing the meal with the war, and just like the war, nobody will stop in the middle of the war just to go to the bathroom, right? So just like that, you cannot stop people from eating. And therefore, when the guy is sitting and he says, guys, please stop eating, I want to make Borei Perei HaGefen in the middle of my meal, we cannot make sure that everybody really has the mouth empty. And maybe the danger will happen, so therefore we are not allowed to make Borei Perei HaGefen in the middle of the Seudah. So just to recap, we have here two opinions. First opinion is the opinion of Tosfot. In the situation that somebody in the middle of the meal, he says, I want to make bracha. Is he allowed or not? So according to everybody, he's not allowed. But if he makes sure, why? Because it's dangerous. If he makes sure that everybody doesn't eat, so Tosfot says he is allowed. Rabbeinu Elchanan says he is not allowed. Why? Because it's a danger. You understand? Because of a danger, we don't do something specific, which is a bracha, to bless God, and everybody saying amen, we don't do that, because it might happen a danger. Morai v'rabotai, the Zera Shimshon takes this halacha, and he put it on top of the story that we started with Rav Nachman and Rabbi Yitzchak. Rav Nachman knew that we are not allowed to speak while we are eating. If this is so, Rav Nachman, why he asked Rabbi Yitzchak to speak? We are not allowed, and he know about it. He says like this. He says, because Rav Nachman told himself like this. He says, if I start speaking a Chidush Torah, what will happen? Rav Yitzchak, he might continue it while I'm speaking, and then he will want to answer me, and then the danger will happen. So better for me not to speak. Better for me to stop eating myself. Rav Nachman, he stops to eat, and he will ask Rav Yitzchak, please tell me something that you have to say from Israel, from Rabbi Yochanan, right? So I'm not eating, and he will stop eating. Why? Because he will speak. And like that, everybody doesn't have any danger, right? So now we understand that Rav Nachman knew that teaching, but he asked Rabbi Yitzchak why, because he wanted to make sure that he's not eating and also Rabbi Yitzchak not eating. If he will speak, Rabbi Yitzchak might continue eat, and then an danger will happen. So he cannot do that. We are not allowed to speak in the middle of the meal. But if he asks Rabbi Yitzchak to speak, he will make sure that he is not eating, and then Rabbi Yitzchak will be able to speak. Comes Rabbi Yitzchak and he says, my dear friend, in Israel they are teaching that even when in the situation that we are making sure that nobody has food in the mouth and it's the middle of the meal, we are still not allowed to speak. The same discussion that we have between Tosfot and Rabbeinu Al-Hanan that we just mentioned before, if we make sure that nobody is eating, are we allowed to speak or not? So Rabbi Yochanan says, no, this is what Rabbi Yitzchak says. In Israel, we learn from Rabbi Yochanan that, not like you in Bavel saying that it is allowed. Rabbi Nachman says it is allowed, therefore I'm asking Rabbi Yitzchak to speak. But Rabbi Yitzchak says, no, even if you make sure that I'm not eating and you are not eating, we should not speak while we're eating. And therefore I cannot share with you any idea while we're eating. You understand? And this is basically the answer, the question and answer. So what is the halakha? The halakha is that the Shulchan Aruch, the Sephardic custom, because the Sephardic people are going after the Mechaber, the Beit Yosef, Rabbi Yosef Karo. Rabbi Yosef Karo says, like Tosfot, that you are not allowed to speak while you're eating, but if you make sure that nobody is eating, right, you are allowed to make a bracha or to say something because no danger will happen. You make sure that everybody is not eating. But the Rama, the Ashkenazi commentator, rabbi that explained the law, the Rama says, like Rabbeinu Al-Hanan, that even if you make sure that nobody is eating, you are not allowed to speak while you're eating.
This applies to today's day?
It applies to today's day, exactly, but there is a big difference. In today's day, if you are eating like back then it's applying. How they used to eat? They were leaning on the bed. And when you are leaning on the bed, it's much more dangerous to speak while you're eating. Today we are sitting around the table. Even if we are speaking while we're eating, no danger, major danger could happen. So therefore it's not the exact same as it used to be back then. However, the Zohar HaKadosh, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai is writing in Parashat Eikev, this parasha, that he says like this. He says, it's better not to speak while you're eating. You know why? Because your table on which you're eating is a mizbeach, the altar. The food that you're eating is the korban, and you are the kohen. You are the kohen. When somebody is a kohen and is serving God in the temple, you're a kohen, you are serving God in the temple, can you speak just business? Can you speak just whatever's going on in the newspaper? No, of course not. So therefore the Zohar says we should not speak today as well while we're eating, because we're in the middle of making a korban. We are eating, we are making a bracha, we are having in our mind that we are not now enjoying the sushi or the steak or whatever we're eating. We are having in mind that we are eating in order to have strength to serve God. This is in our mind. And then you are considered to be the Kohen that is the korban on the altar. So this is what I wanted to share with you about Rabbi Levi Yitzchak, the founder of the Lubavitcher Rebbe, Zchutut Yagen Alenu, and about the Zera Shimshon that explained the importance of food when a Jewish person is eating, is like a korban is happening. It's very important. And also the halakha about speaking while you're eating, if it's allowed or not allowed. Chazak u'barak.